Welcome back, folks. Today we will be fitting these engine bars, which are described as Kappa by Givi. They appear to be exactly the same as the Givi or Givi, don't know how to pronounce that, don't know if anybody does. There are two listed, Kappa by Givi, and then there are some separate ones which are just Givi. They seem to be exactly the same, although they have slightly different part numbers but exactly the same fitting instructions. So the Kappa by Givi ones, if you can see, are known as the KN9051, and just the Givi ones are referred to as part number TN9051. Only difference I can see, one of the listings I've seen, is that the pure Givi ones appear to have some plastic bits to screw on, obviously probably to protect these if it does fall over, if you're more regularly dropping it. Probably would have been a good idea for me, given I'm clumsy. So this is just a how-to fitting video. The instructions look okay, but are only sort of illustrated, so we'll fit them together and see how we get on. You'll note maybe that the bike is filthy. I'll clean up the relevant parts as I go along. I couldn't be bothered washing it. So here we go. So firstly, what do we get in the box? We get a pair of bars and a bracketry kit. These were out separately. And a set of instructions which we will follow, and a guarantee, and a bit of bubble wrap. So we better check that we've got everything. Why have we only got one spring washer? Strange we've only got one of them. Let's have a look at the checklist. It is only showing one of those, so we'll come back to that. Two of those, check. One of those, check. Two of those, check. 4 spacers in that size, whatever that size is. Don't know what they're made of. Pretty heavy. Hopefully they're stainless. They might probably not. Let's check. They're not stainless. They are just steel. Might get those made in brass depending on what they look like. And 2 in that size. A couple of O-rings. That, I don't know if I pointed it out. Don't know what that's made of. Almost feels like plastic. It's very light. No idea. It's not magnetic anyway. A couple of stainless washers, 1 spring washer as I said, and a couple of which I don't know what you call them, bent washers. Don't know. Don't know where they are for. Can't think off the top of my head, but we'll look at the instructions. So that's what you get, and all the instructions are in. Are they all in Italian? Oh no, no. Left side, right side. There we go. So we shall start by removing this, I presume. I forgot to add what tools you'll need. Now, as I'm starting, I don't know, but it only says that you'll need an 8mm socket, a 14mm socket and a 17mm socket, but looking how things are held on, I think you will need a reasonable socket set. This is my favourite make of socket set, which is Teng, not sponsored, and Teng spanners. So I'll don't know whether I'll need them, but I'll get out a 14mm spanner, 17mm spanner and an 8mm spanner. I suspect I'll probably need an 8mm socket, so we'll get that one out as well. Another thing it doesn't mention is an Allen key to fit these, which is an 8mm Allen key. I suspect we'll need that. And as ever, some copper slip to stop things seizing up, and I'm also going to blow in some ACF 50. People always ask me what I mean when I'm saying ACF 50 if they've not heard of it. This is what it is. You can get it in cans as well, but it's more efficient blowing it from a compressor if you've got one. Now, one would hope, with it being a relatively new bike and having been ACF 50 etc now and again, that the fittings would be okay, but I will, just before starting to remove the nuts and bolts, I'll just put a little bit of this release agent on it. Find it to be superior to WD-40 for bolt releasing anyway, nut releasing. Nut and bolt releasing. Where are you? And then presumably we need some up there. Doesn't matter if it gets everywhere, won't hurt anything, it'll only do it good. Depending where you spray it, obviously. And I'll just give that a minute to soak in, and then I'll start taking the bits off. Right, let's get on to taking these off. I don't really know why it doesn't show spanners in the fitting guide, because it's far more useful. I mean, you need a socket to go on this side, but you should be taking the nut off the bolt, not the bolt out of the nut, if that makes sense. That's a 14mm spanner. Ooh, it's quite a bit of, can't tell if that's a bit of corrosion or white grease. I think it's a little bit of corrosion. It looks a little bit oily down here. Did an oil change the other day. Didn't bother filming it. I'm sure most people know how to do an oil change. Now, I'll just say some of the reasons before continuing why I chose these, and a bit more detail on them. This is a 2mm tube. These are 5mm brackets. Hardware over there joined together, so they're on your 4 strong frame mounts plus the join there, so if you do tip over, you're transferring any stresses through the whole of it rather than putting it all onto 2 brackets, so you're benefiting from the rest of the brackets. I was initially reluctant to fit any bars because I didn't, if I do dump it at speed, I didn't want to cause any damage to anything else by them getting bent, but I think it's all swings and roundabouts. You're going to do some damage if you drop it. So I thought, I'm clumsy, I'm more likely to do a slow speed drop, or when I do take it off road. So that's why I went for these particular ones. And I also, because how they stick out, I'd like to, as you'll probably see on some bikes, I'd like to put a lamp, so like this, sit a lamp pointing forward on one side, just to help in the darker months of the year. It shows offering this up before you've removed the next nut. I don't think that's going to be very useful, so I think we'll get that nut out of the way. I won't remove the bolt just yet, but I'll just take that nut off. Feels like it's spinning. Just wedge my spanner in there. Just stop it rotating. Nuts are all coming off easy. Take that washer off. Take my spanner. There's not actually any stress on that at all. So I think, because we've got one side in, I think we're safe to remove that. I think I'll just leave it there for a minute. Now, it doesn't actually show where that sits. Must sit over your clutch cable, I would think. Something like that. Now, one thing I've noticed, and I don't really understand, they're showing using 2 spacers on the bottom. I don't know why they don't just supply one in the right length. I don't know what that's all about, but maybe just adapting their existing parts bin. But we'll do what they say. We can always, like I say, I might get these, because they're only steel, they'll probably rust. I might get them made up in brass, get Graham on it. Now it's showing a washer, but it looks like it's showing one of the piddly little washers. I'm going to try with the bigger washer. Not that it really matters because it's going through a 5mm plate, but let's try that. Just let that dangle there. Get a bit of grease. In fact, I might grease up a load of that just to stop any corrosion. More the merrier, apart from it gets it all over myself like a messy person. Feed that in there. On reflection, looking at that bolt doesn't look quite long enough if we start using thicker washers. So I'll take that one off and I'll use one of their little ones. No, I won't, and I'll tell you why. Because the hole in the bracket is whatever it is, maybe a 12mm, it's probably a 10mm bolt, so it'll rattle around. I'd rather it just sit properly in the washer. Get my spacers. as you can see from the other side, there isn't enough thread, so I am going to indeed go back to the small washer here. I'd rather have a thicker washer and a slightly longer bolt, but that's what they've given me, so we'll go with that. Maybe to see it's a little bit moist down there. I've just blown some ACF 50 into that part before everything gets tightened up. Help stop any future corrosion. This out, as I said, it's nice and loose. Oh, look at that, see? Corrosion starting. So if you aren't going to fit these bars, I'd advise taking out all these nuts and bolts and greasing everything up wherever you can, so when you do want to remove them in the future, you can do. Put a washer on, so I'm going to try again with a fat washer or a heavy washer. It says once that spring washer as well, and one of the taller spacers. So like that. Spacer on there, spring washer on there, washer on there, bolt through there. Just pop some grease on that again. Space that. And bobby that through there. So that's for the other side. About 3 or so threads so you don't damage anything. Leave that one loose for now. Now you'll note this is threaded to accept the little nuts to join, little bolts to join it together, and you'll see it's like countersunk on this side to help you get the nut in. If you try the other side, it's wrong, so you want to put this in with this side facing forward to make it easier. As you can see, fitted the O-rings there. Now looking at that, we need to get that into one side prior to putting any of the threads, so I'll just release that a little bit and sneak that in there and bobby that back in there and just try and get the bolt started again. That's started. I'm not taking this one out yet. I'm concerned whether how much weight of the engine is on this, or whether it'll stay in place with the other bolts. So let's just see. We'll soon be able to tell whether it slips out easy or not. Comes out, no force required. Just give it a little wipe, little dash of ACF 50. So same thing again, a bolt, 2 spacers, one of the thinner washers, plenty of grease, having seen the state of the old ones, given my bike's still pretty low mileage and it's kept in a warm house. Don't you hate it when you grease a bolt up and then you drop it in the crap? It's a little bit fiddly this, but more so because I'm filming it. I think without the added messing about with cameras, it'll be relatively easy. And one of your thick washers back on the other side. If you didn't know this, there's a right and a wrong way to put a washer on. Not that it matters, unless you've got a condition like me. So you want the rounded shoulder, you bolt through that way. So that against your work piece or whatever, against your whatever it's washing against, and you bolt through there. Obviously it's going to be that way around with a nut on the opposite side. You get the idea. 8mm Allen key again, just to help get that seated. Be handy. You've got a little spike just to help rotate the spacer inside to make sure it's in the right orientation. If you can see in there, just use your spike just to bring it, just to turn it around so it's ready to put the bolts in, and then nip everything up so you can still rotate it. Not essential, but just to help you get in with the bar. You've got a universal joint and another bit of an extension. You can go in however you want now. You only need to hold that briefly. Once it's onto the spring washer, you should be able to turn that without it rotating. No, you can't. Sometimes you can. Locate your Allen key like that, your hex wrench, and gently turn it until that locks against something. Just make sure whatever it locks against it doesn't damage. Just going to touch the engine casing, and then it's like having 3 hands. That's pulling the joint together up top. So I'm not going to go mad with this. It's got a spring washer on, it's not going to go anywhere. And nip up the bottom parts. So that's it. Nice and sturdy. So, as I said, one of the reasons for choosing these ones, rather than just mounting on this side of the frame and being left to themselves, having that extra join in the middle where they join together, it just helps transfer the load. So if you do drop the bike, it shares the load between all 4 mounting points rather than just one side of the bike. So So the final job is just to use these washers, obviously shaped like that to go around the tube now we've ascertained, and put those so they have to go in there. So I'll do that and then we'll tidy up and have a look what it looks like. So these final little bolts, just round them in a couple of turns by hand, and again I've put some copper grease on these. Just feed them in, make sure those washers sit on the tube as they should. Get them both something light before finally nipping them up. These are only little 6mm bolts, so they don't want to be tight at all. Don't go swinging on them with your big gorilla arms or you will regret it. Right, I'll just remove the wrench and get that washer set. And that one. Like I say, they're going, I don't know what that space is made out of, something a bit composite. So, in addition to the bolts not being very strong, that won't be either, you'll only snap something or damage the threads. So if you see as I'm holding the thing so I can't get a lot of leverage on it. I think that's sufficient. So when all is said and done, you should be left with 2 heavy washers, 2 bolts from the bottom of the frame, and 1 bolt that holds the top engine mount on. As you can see, again, starting to corrode. So in addition to fitting the bars, we've helped the old girl out by stopping those parts corroding any further. So that's them all fitted. Really happy with how they look and how they went on. Not difficult at all, like I say, a little bit fiddly, mainly because I'm trying to film it. But yeah, couldn't be happy with those. Now, another reason, my final reason for choosing these particular ones, I'm considering making my own bash plate, and I was wondering whether these might help with providing a strong mounting point. I want to make a bash plate out of as thicker aluminium as possible, probably 4mm, and cover the frame rails and such. So I'm hoping these may provide a suitable place to assist with giving a strong mounting point. For that, might involve altering the hardware a little bit, or maybe even welding to the tubes, but we shall see. So that's it, folks. Thanks for watching. If you don't already, please subscribe, and if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, and I'm very sorry, go watch EastEnders or something.